So here we go. Welcome to the webinar, finally, for the third time. So as you know, today's webinar is on stakeholder engagement and citizen awareness. The webinar is part of this wonderful series that we're organising on the urban circular bioeconomy. It's organised by these 4 projects together: CluBE, Value Waste and Waste Up. So this is the second webinar in a series of 6. So the first one was last week. You can catch up with that. The recording is on YouTube. Yeah, that's to be revisited. The slides are also available. We have 4 more coming up, the next of which is next week, the 26th of May, on technologies for biowaste and wastewater valorization. So make sure to sign up for all of those. So just some housekeeping before we start. So the webinar is on YouTube at the same time, which is why I'm listening to myself twice for the first minute. So you can follow, if you're following on YouTube, you can write to us in the chat. If you're within the Zoom, you can ask your questions to our panelists in the Q&A section. Obviously we're recording, it's going to be on YouTube, and the slides will also be made available. So that's enough from me making a mess at the start of the webinar. I'm going to hand over now to our experts who can get us onto the topic of today. So over to Carina and Dimitra to tell us more about today's topic. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, James. So let's see if I manage to share my screen as well. Yep, should work. Great, so welcome again, everyone. We're happy to have this nice webinar today, stakeholder engagement and citizen awareness. Yeah, and I would like to just very briefly give a short introduction to the topic and to our speakers of today, and then, of course, have rather more time for the speakers and for all your questions and comments. So let me be very brief. Starting first, stakeholder engagement. So whom are we actually, if I manage to change the slide, whom are we actually talking about there? So who are these actors along the bio-waste value chain? Of course, for now we map this just very roughly, but just to make sure, this webinar, we call it stakeholder engagement and not only citizen engagement, because we really want to discuss and review a bit what are the roles of all these actors along the chain. So be it food producers at the very beginning, be it transport or waste management companies, public administration, or also political actors on local or national level. So there are a vast group of actors that will be relevant if we talk about stakeholder engagement, and just to map these a little bit and keep in mind that we are not talking only about citizens, but of course citizens or households do play a big role also today. So starting from this, what actually then do we understand as stakeholder engagement, just to make sure we're all on the same page there. For us, we would see stakeholder engagement, especially on our topic of bio-waste management, as a guided process, a dialogue process, an ongoing dialogue process among all the key actors along the value chain, working towards a common goal, which should be a circular bio-waste value chain. That's, I think, what we want to discuss today. So yeah, it's about sharing, together implementing pilot activities, about agenda setting on local level, and really achieving this long-term commitment and engagement of all actors. Again, sorry, okay. And so why are we doing this? What's the point of stakeholder engagement? Of course, if we have so many diverse actors, they all have very different motivations, challenges, needs, maybe also sometimes very conflicting ones along this chain, and very different interests. So it's really about bringing those together and trying to get to common activities and common understanding. It's a lot about fostering this local leadership and locally owned activities, so that It's not only, as we have, for instance, are starting in our four projects, so it's not only project-owned activities, but anything on stakeholder engagement should be long-lasting and should be run by the local actors. And we will hear a lot of nice examples on this today. Yeah, it's about raising awareness, triggering behavior change of different actors, of households, of citizens, sharing best practices. Also, we want to share some of those today. And of course, upscaling those pilot initiatives that are happening. And then moving from the general stakeholder engagement to the citizens, why are the citizens so relevant in all this discussion? Obviously, the households are a big part of those producing the bio-waste, as we also see here for the food waste example. So yeah, without the households producing a good quality of bio-waste, there's no point along the entire value chain. And also, if we look at how much bio-waste is, or bio-waste and food waste is currently already sorted and used compared to how much the potential would be, we see there's still a long way to go. And for this, of course, engaging household citizens and achieving good sorting behavior is the very first and important step. But not only is it about having the citizens and households at the beginning of this chain, so improving behavior there, but it's also at the end again. So increasing acceptance on bio-based products, awareness on these products. So we are starting today with a nice presentation from Laura, who will give us a nice insight into what they're doing as part of the Waste Up project, as a nice framework to achieve behavior change and to really measure or to decide what tools or what initiatives best to start depending on what the local situation is. So we're very much looking forward to hear from that. And we'll then move to some of these promising practices or good examples that are already out there. Obviously, a lot is already happening in Europe on many levels on stakeholder engagement or citizen engagement. And none of these solutions, of course, fits the same for all cities. It's always very dependent on local conditions, on cultural backgrounds, maybe on eating habits. So there's also a lot of diversity, and we would really like to see some of these examples that may be nice to upscale, that are really promising also to see on a more bigger scale in Europe, and are very happy that we are starting there with some of our examples that we have also in the VUB project. So we are happy to have Maria and Øystein here today presenting what is happening in Bergen on citizen engagement and awareness. Very much looking forward to this. And then also as another example of how stakeholder engagement can look like, we are also happy to give a bit of a sneak peek of what we are also, among others, doing in the Excalibur and the VUB projects, where we are working on so-called bio-waste clubs. So we're using this methodology or this tool to engage stakeholders on local level on a long-term base. So basically the bio-waste clubs are like a dialogue platform where all actors regularly meet together, shape their activities, and drive the local circular economy agenda. And also there, I'm not going into the details because luckily we are also there for this, having a nice best case. So we are happy to have Theodoros and Yannis presenting to us what is happening in the city of Kozani and also the wider region of Western Macedonia in Greece. So that's on the one side what's happening in this bio-waste club there, but it's also, and that's again really interesting to not only look at the citizen perspective, but also at the wider stakeholder engagement. It's also about hearing a bit how in Kozani they have set up the cluster on bioeconomy, which in itself is also kind of a stakeholder board, established long-term, institutionalized. So we're very keen to hear how this can help improving the bio-waste value chain. And with this, I am already passing to our first speaker, so to Laura.
Thank you, Carina. Let me share my screen. you should now be able to see it. So thank you for attending this webinar. As Carina said, my name is Temmerman. I'm from the research group SMIT from the Free University of Brussels here in Belgium. And today I will present to you the Waste Up project and more specifically the behavior change approach that we have in it. So I will first give you a little introduction on the project to give you a bit of a context for our research activities, then go on to explain why it's important to have behavior change for the bioeconomy, how we can do so through the modular behavioral analysis approach, the MBAA model, and finally, I will give you some of our preliminary results. So first, the Waste Up project. So the goal of the Waste Up project is really to demonstrate the establishment of those new value chains that will turn waste into a resource that can then be turned into bio-based products. So the goal here is really to focus on this full value chain through a multi-stakeholder approach. Our project, as you can see here, is constituted of various pilots that are also located in different countries. So we have Spain, the UK, Greece, to cite only them. And you can also see that all of these pilots are focusing on specific type of bio-waste. So for example, meat waste, coffee, or cellulosic rejection. And they are all then investigating those specific value chain and how they can be turned into bio-based products, just like biosolvent or coffee oils or gelatin. It's important here that I already tell you that for the behavior change intervention, we are only involving pilot 1, Valencia, pilot 5, Athens, and pilot 6, Barcelona, just so that you're not surprised that I only talk about that later. So our specific objective for this project is to enhance the participation of citizens, but also businesses. So let's say user in the separate collection of urban biowaste, improve the current perception of urban biowaste as a local resource, but also improve the customer acceptance, as Carina said, is also very important. So why is this important to change behavior for the bioeconomy? Well, if you look a bit of the research that has been done on the circular economy so far, you can see here in the faded colors that the subject of the research have been very much on economic aspect in the dark blue, on marketing or business aspect in red, but also on very technical aspects such as treatment, for example, in green, but also the yellow, purple, and faded blue, sorry. And you can see that the consumer has only been investigated in this more marketing business aspect, and in very little here you can see perception. So you can clearly see that there's a lack of focus on the social aspect of the circular economy. And this current lack, it really represents a major challenge for the transition towards the circular economy, because it means that we have an inadequate and insufficient understanding of the citizen in this new system on the one hand, but we also see that on the other hand, the citizens have very limited awareness and understanding of the concept of the circular economy. So we have kind of a double lack of understanding in this situation. And as you can imagine, this leads to issues in the implementation of circular economy and bioeconomy initiative if citizens and users in general don't know how or why they should be involved in it. And this is better represented if you look at this loop. So of course, when you think about circular economy, bioeconomy, you have this idea that the waste is transformed into resource, is transformed into a product, etc. But you also have to think that for all of the steps, there's also a specific stakeholder involved. And as you can see here, is if the user is not involved, then the loop is broken, of course. So if they're not sorting their waste, or if they're not purchasing bio-based product, well, the value chain is broken and actually the loop is irrelevant. So this really emphasizes why behavior change is relevant for the bioeconomy, because the goal is to contribute to a sustainable economic system through both reduction of the consumption footprint and through the increasing of circular material use rate. And this is why, as I was explaining to you, we are focusing on increasing selective sorting of bio-waste acceptance of biowaste as a local resource, and acceptance of bio-based products. Okay, so what do we do now? Well, we have developed a model for change, the modular behavioral analysis approach, that supports and implements the design of behavior change intervention. It works as an iterative approach that I will explain to you in a minute. And it's a model that we have already applied in different projects, such as Hacker, City of Kings, and Health at Work, if you want to look them up. The model works in several steps. There are 6 steps total. The first step is scoping. As all good research activities, you start by defining what you're looking at. So defining the problem. Here, it was the lack of social focus. Then selecting the target behavior. For us, it's the selective sorting of biowaste. Then we select the target audience. So what are we actually targeting with this intervention? This was done in collaboration with our pilot community. So as I was telling you, Valencia, Athens, and Barcelona, where certain pilot decided they want to focus on citizens, certain pilot decided they want to focus on business, on certain part of the community. So that was developed collaboratively. Then we specified target goals. It should be goals and not behavior. In this instance, we are aiming for a 60% of participation rate, for the selective sorting of biowaste. And finally, the last step of the scoping phase is the mapping of the current behavior, which is a theoretical step where we basically look at a bunch of literature to see what influenced the behavior. This then leads us to the second phase, which is really understanding this behavior. So we want to understand the determinant of the behavior that is governing the action of the user. So here, we also look at literature, both on the model of behavior change or behavior in general, but also on the intervention that have already been implemented, so as to not reinvent the wheel, let's say, and see what has worked so far and what has not. So that we can steer our own behavior change intervention. Then we go into more concrete elements into defining personal, social, environmental, and contextual determinant. And this is done through really talking with the pilot communities. So this was done through an online survey and to focus group. And here we really collect contextual information that is specific to our pilot communities. Then we go into the fun part, let's say the practical part for phase 3, where we really developed the behavior change toolkit. We also developed the evaluation methodology that will enable us to actually see if there is a change. We then go into the define and deviation mechanism, where we monitor the actual behavior change intervention, and we see if we are on track with our target goal. If we are not on track, we go on to phase 5, where we basically look at what's happening and why is it not going as we had planned. Do we have a mitigation track? What can we do to reach our objectives? So we basically define a new intervention, and then we go back to phase 3. So this is the iterative part of the model. If we see in phase 4 that everything is going well, then we continue as it is, and we go on directly to the last phase, which is basically measuring the outcomes of the intervention and see if we reach really our target, if we did better than our targets, elements of explanation as to why, which can then be fed into the design of the business model and the sustainability plans here, for example, for the bio-based product developed by our pilots. So here is the part where I present to you our preliminary results. They are called preliminary just because we are at phase 3. We have not completed the project. It's still an ongoing project, so I don't have the definite results of it. I will just present what we have done so far. So as I was telling you, the main elements of the scoping phase is this mapping of the behavior. I will not go into detail into all of these elements, but basically the literature is telling us that those concepts, so descriptive norm, the trust in the system, perceived convenience, is influencing the bio-waste sorting behavior, and then other type of elements such as self-identity, values, is influencing the bio-based product acceptance. So this gives us already a path, let's say, as to what we have to look at in our behavior change intervention. And those elements are taken up in phase 2, where we launch the online survey. This is the first result of the online survey, which is the result of to what extent our communities are actually sorting their waste. Here you can see that we actually have very different results for all 3 pilots. So for Barcelona, for example, a lot of people told us that they sort their waste all the time. For Valencia, it's not as clear. We can't say that a majority does or does not. And Athens, on the other hand, well, more than 44% told us that they never sort their waste. So we have very different communities at play here. And this is the second result of our online survey. And what this table gives us is actually indication as to what elements we need to be mindful of and focus on our behavior change intervention. So for example, you can see that the attitude is very high and very positive for all of our communities. So we know that this should not be a focus of our intervention. It's not really relevant to put a lot of efforts and time on it because it's very high already. But you can see that elements such as descriptive norm, perceived convenience, system trust, they are scoring quite low or neutral throughout all of our pilot communities. And those are elements to take into consideration if we want to change behavior, because we know from the literature that they have an influence on it. And those were also elements that came during the focus groups. So the focus groups were conducted by our pilot communities, and there we observed different things. First is that there really is a conflict in what we're asking users to do. So the advantages of the behavior is really external. It's environmental protection, it's a better future, but on the other hand, the disadvantages is really internal. It's time consuming, it demands space, efforts, it's very inconvenient according to the citizen. So there's this conflict in the action that we need to take into consideration as well in the intervention. Another thing that was highlighted is that users are facing a lot of challenges in terms of a lack of bins close by, the time consuming, again, lack of practical information. And on the other hand, they were saying that they really wanted to have information on what happened next. What certainty do they have that their action is actually leading to something out of it, and why it's significant for them to actually undertake the behavior. Finally, another element that came out of the focus group was that users wanted to be communicated to through flyers, social media, email, instant messages. And this is really where you can clearly see that it's important to have this co-creative approach to the intervention, because, for example, instant messages was not something that coming from Belgium we would have thought about. It's really not common for us, for example, to have entity communicate to lay citizens through instant messages such as WhatsApp or Viber, but in Valencia, sorry, apparently it's quite common to do so. So we would have never thought about that. So this gives us the phase 3 intervention and test. There's a lot of information on this slide. I will not go too much into detail, but basically it's a timeline of the different activities, when they will be implemented, and how we go about. And this whole process means that we are actually able to investigate the behavior on 5 components: the reliability of the intervention, the speed of change, the particularism of different effect on different behavior, the generality in terms of the profiles, and the durability of the change. So what is actually our toolkit about? So based on the results of the previous stage, we have developed here, I think it's 6 different elements. So first, environmental restructuring through stickers and posters that will work both on nudging participants to sort their waste when they are on location, but also giving them practical information and more instrumental knowledge at school as to, for example, what they can sort and what they cannot sort in those bins. Then we have persuasion through social media that works more on the norms. So telling that other people are also sorting their waste. Then behavioral modeling through video clips that is basically working on the perceived convenience associated with the behavior. So trying to maybe show that it's not as convenient as they might think it is. Incentivation through badges that will work best as an incentivization for, let's say, younger generation. But that could work if the badges are, for example, used on Facebook as also a normative aspect, because people will see that a lot of people are actually taking part in this behavior. Then we have enablement through the provision of bags and bins that will basically work as a first step into the behavior. And finally, join the loop events that will work as kickoff events for our intervention. So now I will show you just a little example of what we are thinking about implementing for our behavior change approach. So this can still change, of course, and they will, of course, be translated in the language of the community. So here are some examples for the stickers and the poster, as I was telling you, on the different items that can be sorted and others that should not be sorted in that type of bins. Here we have the social medias that are playing on the norms, so describing how many of their neighbors are already sorting their waste. Here we have social media working on trust, so giving them information as to why it's important to sort their bio-waste and what's happening once they have sorted their bio-waste, with giving the most localized and relevant information for their context to them. So naming, for example, the stakeholders that are active in their city. The tips, so for example, indicating them where the collective bins are located, how they can do to have less flies. This is an example of a badge that could be used on Facebook, as I was explaining you. That was it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Don't hesitate if you have questions now, but you can also reach me via email. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, there are already a few questions, so I think we would start with those. And if there are more questions to Laura coming that we don't manage right now, then we will also have a bit time still at the end of our webinar today to answer, hopefully, also all the remaining open ones. But let's start for now with those few we already have. And one is actually from a colleague of mine. So the question is, on your slide with those 6 steps of the MBAA model, from your experience, which steps are most difficult to implement or take most of the time? And then as a related question, what challenges do we have to watch out for when running such an approach?
Yes, so I will have to say, so far, I don't think we have run into the challenges yet, because we are at the beginning of the phases. So we have the chances also with the whole COVID situation that our activities were it was possible to do it through desk research and also through online surveys. So we were able to continue with the steps without too much issues. Of course, when you reach out to user, whether it be businesses or citizens, it's always a bit hard to involve them in such a thing when they have other things on their mind. However, from experience also on other projects, we know that the most difficult part is really the implementation of the tools. For example, if you want to have posters or stickers on community bins, well, you need authorization from the administration. It's time consuming. It requires a lot of efforts from the partners. There can be also conflict between different let's say, awareness raising campaigns that could work in parallel, which could confuse the user. So I would say the most important part of the challenges really happen in this implementation phase, definitely.
Thanks. So for this, we are still to hear maybe in a year from now what your challenges were with this. I'm also, it's great to hear that you managed to gather all this data, like you said, also the surveys all online, because we also see it in some of the other two projects that it's sometimes very difficult to right now motivate any citizens. And I see you also did focus groups. Which is really challenging because I guess most citizens have other things to worry about right now than their bio-waste. So yeah, also there, if you have learnings to share how you manage to motivate them despite COVID, then also very keen to hear.
Yes, it's true that it's always, I would say, always a challenge, more now in time of COVID. We also have the chances, that our partners have already a network to work with. And so we are able, in any case, to reach certain type of people. Of course, then you always have a bias in the type of, let's say, information that you collect, because there's always a self-selection bias in the type of profile that the people that are just interesting to participate in your research activities. And this is also something that we take into consideration when we, let's say, do our conclusion based on the research data. I would say a tip is always in the design of the project. Here it's a European project, to include partners that are that have experience in community building and that have already communities behind them, let's say, and that are just good at it.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And I think it will be also nicely shown in our coming two presentations. Okay, two last questions. So one, I think, is also related again to the surveys, and I think you partly already answered it. So the question is, did you also ask in your survey why the citizens in Athens didn't sort their waste? I think Athens were the ones probably that had the lowest responses or the response that they don't sort. So yeah. Maybe you can also say a bit why, if you know it.
Definitely. So a first element, I wanted to mention it, but I didn't. It's also that we have to take into consideration that those cities, they don't have the same type of collection scheme. So for example, Athens has a quite scarce, let's say, networks in terms of collective bins, whereas Barcelona is way better at it, let's say, and they also have door-to-door collection. So of course, the type of efforts is not the same. And what we actually saw with the Athens citizens through the focus group is that they were saying, we actually sort our waste at home. It's selectively sorted, but it takes so much time and effort to go to the collective bin that sometimes we just end up dumping it in the residual bin. So that is a first element of response there for these differences.
Thanks, that's already interesting to hear. And let's see what we hear later on from our other Greek case today. So one last question that is also in the chat. Are the items influencing behavior? So the table with the 3 colors that you showed, the same for citizens and businesses?
No, so it's true that here I focused on citizens, and maybe this is also something to come back to the challenge aspect, is that as you saw, we have 3 different type of pilots in terms of the cities. It's 3 different contexts. We also have different behaviors to investigate, so the sorting and the acceptance of bio-based product, and we also have different type of target audience, so citizens and businesses. So just to come back to the first question, this is also a huge challenge because you have to think that you have to duplicate everything, and yeah, it becomes a lot of work. So closing on that. No, the results were not the same for the citizens and the business, and this is why I didn't want to confuse the whole thing. I just focused on citizens, but the reality of citizens and business is not the same, and so results were different indeed.
Great, thanks a lot. Well, thanks a lot already, Laura, for these nice insights. And as said, we hopefully will also still have some time at the end. So if anyone still has questions to Laura and of course to the other speakers coming, then please keep putting them in the Q&A function. And for now, we are happy to move on to Bergen then. And passing to Maria and Øystein.
Yes. Let's see, I'll share the screen. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carina, and thank you for the invitation. I hope you can see the presentation now. Me and Maria is going to talk a bit about citizen engagement and awareness at BIR. And first we can look at the agenda. We're going to show you a snapshot of the Bergen region, and then we are going to show you a little bit about the development of waste infrastructure in Bergen and what it enables through the pay-as-you-throw and the effects we have seen in Bergen. And we're going to show you a bit about the drivers for behavior. And then Maria is going to talk about the reuse week that we arrange and the circular school that we are a part of. And at the end, we're going to show you the environmental portal. So the Bergen region, it has approximately 365,000 inhabitants. It's both urban and rural areas surrounded by mountains, and it's pretty famous for its 7 mountains and as well as the rainy weather. And the main economic activities are oil and gas, ocean technology and seafood, as well as shipping. And that might not be a surprise as we are located on the west coast of Norway. The development of waste collection infrastructure in Bergen, we have had a step-by-step development. It started with the bins, and we made them smart with adding ID chips on the bins. This enables us to scan each bin on the waste vehicle. As well as we are building out one of Europe's largest waste tube system in the city center of Bergen, and you have to use ID chips to open the hatches. As well as we have underground waste systems in the areas around Bergen, where you also have to use an ID chip. And this enables us to collect quite a lot of data and how people use the infrastructure. And it also enables our payment model. So the pay-as-you-throw model that we use is based, you can see on the top right here, it's one fixed fee and it's one variable fee for the residual waste, and you have one minimum amount included in the fixed fee. So because everyone has waste, so you have a bit included. And then if you throw more than this, you have to pay more. And the other sorted type of waste, paper, plastic, glass, etc., is free of charge. So you have an incentive to sort as much as possible and lower your fee. And as we implemented this type of pay-as-you-throw model, we saw a drop of 8% in the residual waste in the city of Bergen. So that's quite nice. And the drivers for behavior, as we see it, one, you have insight and attitude, and it's all about communication and how you affect the consumers. And then you have the convenience, of course. It's how easy it is to use, how close is the sorting stations. It must not be too far to the sorting stations. And 3 is the economy and the incentive. And it's all about the appreciation of effort and not necessarily meant to save a lot of money, but you get like a nudge or a positive feedback on doing the right thing. And we think pay-as-you-throw and nudging needs more research. We are looking into non-digitalized, more traditional containers that we have, and we try to implement new hatches to these with ID chips so that we can get registered the throwing of waste on an individual level. Because if you have everyone is using the same containers and we are and they are paying the fee based on the weight of the container, you have a challenge with the tragedy of the commons. And that means that if you see your neighbor throw a lot of waste, you might want to throw at least as much to so you don't have to pay for their waste. And we see this as an opportunity for research and looking deeper into how the really the effects of pay-as-you-throw are. And we will compare this to the moral appeal and nudging as well, and see what works best or how they work together, and develop this further. And we have a collaboration with the Norwegian School of Economics, and have established a live lab outside or in Bergen. And the results we probably will see in 22, 23. So it's quite interesting. Maria, if you want to jump in.
Yes, thank you, Øystein. My name is Maria, and I work as a communications advisor for BIR. And I'm going to present some of our initiatives to engage citizens and raise awareness for circular economy. In November 2019, we arranged a reuse week for the first time. Similar weeks have been held in Oslo and Trondheim, but this was the first time something like this was done in Bergen. We did this because we wanted to show both citizens and companies the diversities of all the great reuse initiatives that exist in this area. We wanted to teach people about the problems associated with our consumption, but most importantly about the solutions, so that everyone can have a more sustainable consumption in their everyday life. We decided to hold a reuse week on the same week as Black Week to make it even more clear to people that there are alternatives to buying new things. This is how we organized the week. Each day was given its own topic. On Monday, there was a kickoff with a full-day conference about circular economy. On Tuesday, the topic was plastic. Wednesday, design and innovation. Thursday, food rescuing. And on Friday, the topic was clothes, with a special focus on Green Friday as opposed to Black Friday. Saturday was also called the Big Reuse Day. So we had 2 huge tents in the city center with different stands. About 10,000 people visited this event. I'm going to tell you a bit more about how we organize the week and work with marketing. But first, I'm going to show you a 3-minute film of some of the events.
Maria, I'm not sure if it's only me, but I cannot hear the sound of the video.
Yeah, I don't know why, but anyway, there's only background music and some Norwegian speaking, so it should be fine.
Okay.
So what you see here is, you just saw a guided tour of the food central in Bergen. And here you see people that trying to learning how to repair clothes. Same here. And this is from a clothes swapping event. And this is from the Saturday event in the big tent. Here they are making environmental friendly Christmas decorations. So we worked with two other main organizers, Bergen Municipality and Friends of the Earth Norway. And then there were about 20 other companies who took part in the week by organizing a lot of the events that the Reuse Week consisted of. All the events were free. However, some of them had limited spaces and some were limited to school pupils. The organizers were responsible for creating their own events on Facebook and on their websites, and for bookings if spaces were limited. They all got this badge from us, which you see to the right, to put on our events to show that it was part of the Reuse Week. In addition to all the events, we also got about 70 coffee shops to take part in a coffee discount deal where customers would get some discount if they brought their own cup. After this week, 7-Eleven actually made this a permanent offer. As the main organizers, we took care of the coordination and marketing and presented all the events on our website and on Facebook. And the week was also promoted on organizers' websites, in local media and coffee shops. Sadly, there was no Reuse Week in 2020 due to the pandemic, and we still don't know if we'll be able to do it this year, but we hope it will eventually become a tradition. As businesses are increasingly focusing on being circular, we have also started a circular school together with a few other businesses to start the process of circular thinking and cooperation. The goal here is to provide the participants with knowledge about sustainable business models and inspire them to redefine their business models or establish new circular ones. The course provides good opportunities to learn from each other, create networks, and share experiences. Circular economy is not a competition, so cooperation and sharing ideas are essential to succeed. The first circular school course was held last year with 40 participants, and it became so popular that 70 participants are taking part this year, and even more are on the waiting list. The course consists of 5 gatherings, obviously digital ones this year, as well as tasks to work on between the gatherings. This is some of what the participants will get. I'll just run quickly through this. They get insight into the challenges related to sustainability, climate, lack of resources, knowledge about value chains and material flows and tools to map these, knowledge about regulations related to circular economy and funding schemes, knowledge about circular business models, about obstacles to circular economy, and an understanding of the innovation and research opportunities within circular economy. Lastly, I'm going to present the environment portal. We launched it in December 2020, and it's part of BIR's website, but we wanted to have a place to gather our contributions for the environment that are not part of the statutory responsibility we have for household waste. This includes, Øystein, would you please take the next page? Thank you. This includes, for example, resources for schools, guided tours of our energy plant, and information about how to participate in beach cleanups. We have also gathered some tips and resources on how to live a more sustainable life by repairing and reusing things and reducing waste. The portal also includes information on how BIR works towards the UN sustainability goals. So I really hope the ways we are working here in BIR can inspire some of you, and we are also really open to new ideas and input from you. So thank you so much for your attention.
Great, thank you very much, Maria and Øystein. It's a really interesting presentation and definitely very inspiring examples. So thank you very much. We do have some questions for you. So Maria, if you could tell us a bit about the overall cost of organizing these events.
Sorry, I haven't been involved in the budgeting, but I can pass on your question and we can get back to you.
Great, thanks a lot. Then maybe a bit on the data for the waste behavior that you're gathering with the sensors. So is this data available to the users, to the citizens, and how do they react to this? So is one neighborhood more motivated to perform better than another, or how does this work exactly?
As of today, you get how much openings you have had or how many times you have emptied the bins on your bill. So you can, it's available there. But in the future, we of course want to look more into gamification and see if one neighborhood would compare to another one and get people really excited about sorting. So we will look into that, but we're not quite there yet with the data.
Great, thanks a lot. And maybe another question on this. So how exactly is the data used in terms of transport? So do you use it to optimize the routes or react with targeted campaigns, or?
We use some of it, and we also use level sensors in larger containers that says how the filling level of the containers, and we optimize our emptying routes after that. But I think we have quite a lot of data, and we can use it a lot better in the future. So it's going to be interesting.
Great, that's good to hear. Theodoros, I see you've raised your hand. Do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. Sorry, it's about mistake.
Not a problem. Okay, and one last question from my side. So how exactly is the positive feedback communicated to the users?
Can you explain it a bit more?
Yes, so you mentioned that in order to incentivize them, that sometimes they receive positive feedback when, depending how much they're throwing away. So I was wondering, how exactly does this work?
Yeah, we are only like today we only have the fee or the economic incentive that we give feedback on. But in the future, you would like to give more feedback, more nudging, and that is something we are looking into in the research project with the Norwegian School of Economics. So in the future, we will have more information on that.
Okay, then we are really waiting to hear more about it in the future. I think that some very interesting results are on the way. So I see that right now there are no more questions, so we can move to our next speakers, Theodoros and Yanni. So, but please, if you do have more questions, just put them in the Q&A, and we can discuss them later on. So, Theodoros, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, hello to everyone. I'm Theodoros Gkiourkas from Cluster of Bioeconomy and Environment of Western Macedonia. Western Macedonia is a region which consists from 4 regional units. It has a total area of 9,600 kilometers square in total, and a total population of 282 people. Kozani is the biggest city of the region, and we're participating in 2 different projects. The first one is Excalibur, which only the city of Kozani is participating as a pilot. And the second one is the VUB project, which is participating as a region. And we are as a lighthouse. Now, we have some challenges and impacts affected from the COVID-19 in order to achieve the stakeholder engagement. All the indoor meetings are forbidden. We managed to implement as well a biowaste club meeting in an open space with the open market traders. The HoReCa sector was closed, and we had an online meeting with the president of the association. The waste management company didn't separate any waste from areas with a high number of COVID-19 cases, and this was directly landfilled. Actually, we achieved to fulfill a biowaste club targeting the open markets in Kozani for the CluBE project. We implemented the day before the start of the biowaste collection from the open market. The biowaste club meeting took place in the area of the open markets, which is an open space. So we didn't have the problem of gatherings in buildings. We managed to gather 18 people, keeping all the appropriate measures to prevent the COVID-19 spread, such as distances, masks, and sanitizers. And the participants were representatives from the municipality of Kozani, Diadima, which is the waste management company of the region of Western Macedonia, and representatives of the Association of the Sellers and the Producers of the Open Markets. Actually, due to the COVID-19, the open markets operated in 50% of the total. And we took advantage of this 50% of the operation in order to start the pilot collection of the biowaste from the open markets. We managed to bring the municipality and the waste management company together, who accepted the challenge despite the pandemic, keeping all the safety measures. And it was because of the 50% of the operation, it was easier to discuss with the producers while implementing the pilot collection. And it was safer. We managed to implement this action, the biowaste collection of the open markets, in 5 steps. The first steps, we provided some bags to the sellers in order to start collecting the biowaste. The second step is that we distributed the leaflet with all the appropriate instructions on what to put in the bags. And the third step is that we managed to collect some questionnaires in the form of an interview in collaboration with CSCP from the traders. The fourth step is that when the open market closed, the sellers just left their bags in their place. And then the fifth step, the Diadima, collected the bags, as you can see in the pictures. Actually, we have a video that showing all these processes that I described to you. It is available on YouTube, and I don't know if we have some time, we can see the video later. And I think James will post it in the chat, the link. Now some notes from the biowaste collection from the open markets. The truth is that not everyone followed, but a lot did. We managed to motivate the most of the participants there. People asked us what's in it for us, and we told them it helps environment and other things. And also asked about free entrance in open markets in order to avoid fines. Now, and we have a competitor. People who have hens, pigs, and other animals in the backyard collect biowaste from the open market every Saturday. And we don't want to break the circular economy loop as well. Now, the next actions that we are planning is to collect the coffee residues and food biowaste from HoReCa sector. CluBE with Diadima, we approached the Association of Cafeteria Owners of the region, And we prepared a document with topics and concerns in order to be discussed in the next board of directors meeting about the coffee residues. This document has two different topics for discussion. The first one is about the collection of the appropriate data, for example, list of all the cafeterias, indicative quantities, availability of storage in store, about storage bins, the ways of collection, the frequency of collection, and the time of collection. And the next, and the second topic is about the motivation and involvement, concerning the frequent and effective collection of biowaste in order not to cause any problems regarding the operation of the cafeterias, the distribution of brown beans from the ADIMA in each cafeteria depending the quantities, and some information campaigns and awareness raising to end users, which are the clients, of course. Now, with the help of the CSCP, we designed some surveys for the citizens and the value chain actors. The survey gathering feedback on the stakeholders' perception of biowaste and bio-based products, and of course, the sorting behavior. And part of the stakeholder engagement evaluation process. We ran these surveys with the help of the municipality of Kozani and the ADIMA. Actually, we managed to focus in some specific target groups. For example, we used the emails from the mailing list of the students of the school of Kozani in order to distribute the surveys. We posted on local news websites. We used the social media of the municipality of Kozani, the social media of our cluster. And also we used a mailing list from a stakeholder mapping that we already produced at the beginning of the CluBE project. Now, the next action is to gather as many questions. The next target for us is to gather as many questions as possible, to expand the communication to the entire HoReCa sector, not only the cafeterias, to design how the collection of bio-waste from HoReCa sector, including the coffee residues, can be achieved, and organize the next bio-waste club in Kozani. That's it for me. Yannis will continue from now.
Yes, thank you, Theodoros. Well, the organizers thought that our cluster is maybe an interesting example for some of the audience. So we thought we might give some overview, but to put the accent on where we are located first. So this is the northwestern part of Greece. You see some figures there. Maybe one to retain is the high unemployment. So we need to do activities on that, and then the agricultural nature, that for sure. And then in the next slide, you'll see that this is not really the case of an average Greek region. I don't know, Theodoros, if you can move to the next slide. Theodoros?
Yeah, I'm trying something.
Okay. We have some technical issues.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. There. So as you see, it's not the sun, sea, etc. Typical idea of a Greek place. And some people usually ask me, is this a Photoshop? No, it's not. It's really snow in the center of Kozani. So it's an interesting place for you to visit. And then you will see in the next slide. If we ever go there. Yeah, that apart from the geographical context, we also have a context of economy. Our region has been the focus of energy production in the country for decades, producing more than half of the total electricity, but this was based on lignite, which is poor coal, with all its environmental huge problems it caused. But now that we are decommissioning and driving away from fossil fuels, a lot of jobs will be lost. And now we are looking at alternative ways to counter this challenge, this problem. So Theodoros, if you want to go ahead, I will then speak about the biomass availability. This is one thing that we have count, and we know that there is a lot of biomass in many sorts, as you see, in many different types of residual, especially biomass, available in the area. And all this has been the context through which some years ago, in 2012 and 13, we initially thought about establishing this cluster, and finally we did as a non-profit company. In the next slide, you'll see the, thank you, Theodoros. Especially focusing on bioeconomy and environment. In reality, we started as bioenergy, and then we opened up to a wider bioeconomy topic with the addition of many, especially with many food companies. So what we thought is that if we bring together stakeholders from different sectors under one big umbrella, but also from different domains of the economy, that, as has it been proved in many other places around the world, can speed up things, can create synergies and result into multiplied added value. So we did, and we've focused our activities in a wide spectrum of domains, as you can see in the next slide, involving a lot of biomass exploitation, a lot of energy-related topics, a lot of biofuels, energy exploitation models, and also urban waste exploitation. In that sense, what we do in essence is that we bring together a lot of members, a lot of different stakeholders from the public sector, like the region and the municipalities. In the next slide, you will see some of them. From academia, the research centers and the universities from the area, as well a big number of enterprises. In reality, what you see there is an ecosystem, I would say a club waiting to happen according to the specific topic. So if you have a waste management topic, then you pick some of them and you form the Biowaste Club, as we did, with the addition of with the stakeholders not present in our club, in our cluster. Or if you want an energy efficiency, you do the other thing, etc., etc. So in reality, it's all about bringing stakeholders together, and I would say about bringing people as well together, because I would say that's the major added value of our cluster. We not only officially make a stakeholders approach, but we actually make people working or comprising, included in these stakeholders come together. And as you will see in the next slide, what we basically do is that we drink beers. We drink beers and we, no, but seriously, we spend a lot of time in networking and talking to people and understanding their needs and promoting their needs to their neighbors, so that they know each other, what they are missing, and they know, especially in a circular economy concept, whether they can find it literally next door. And above that, what we also do is that we connect with the rest of the world, especially Europe, but I would say with the rest of the world. And you can see in the next slide that we take these needs and requests from our local partners, and then we look all around Europe and the world to find answers to that. And during this process, quite often we not only take solutions, but we also export solutions. It's definitely a richness of our Europe. I mean, connected Europe is only an advantage for everybody living in it. So what we have seen in practice is that many times the answer for a local SME might be in Greece, might be found in Norway, as we had today, or in Spain, but quite often it could be literally next door. As some of our members usually tell us, we could be very well called the Nokia of Western Macedonia in the sense of connecting people to each other. And I spoke before about projects. We work a lot, or mainly I would say, with European projects. We have a couple of national as well, but we mainly focus on Horizon projects because of the richness of the ideas and the added value we bring to the region. We also have our efforts with the cross-border programs. We currently have 2 with North Macedonia, and we are about to start one with Albania. So not to underestimate or not to forget the wider regional impact factor that we bring along. And how we do that? We have acquired a lot of staff, and this is crucial. As people tell us, it's crucial to have almost 15 people in times when losing jobs is rather the norm. And we have specialized people working in different fields. Most of them, I would say, engineers, but also economists and social aspects involved, etc., etc. I hope I have explained rather well the overall structure of our cluster. And obviously, we're here to answer any questions. And if there is time, we might see some parts of the video that Theodoros already mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ioannis and Theodoros. It was a really nice presentation. And I think that we are all now very keen to join you for a beer in Kozani as well. So we have some questions. So Theodoros, if you could share some words on what the main challenges you faced were to motivate the producers during the engagement activity with the open markets.
Yeah, actually, the main challenge was the pandemic, not to motivate the traders or the sellers. Because we had the problems of the gatherings, and actually we found the solution to gather in an open space at the area of the open markets a day before. It was the time that preparing for the next morning to operate. So that was the main challenge in order to achieve, to gather all these people together. But the people, the traders, were accepted this very nice, and it wasn't very difficult at the end to manage it. Yeah.
I know you're also thinking about scaling it up, right? Taking it to further markets.
Yeah, we think we want to scale it up because in Kozani we have 3 open markets, and we did it only in one open market, and we want to do it to the next 2. Yeah.
Great, that's really good news.
And maybe to add that, of course, we are going to expand it to the rest of Horeca as we are planning, as we were originally planning before the pandemic. But it's true that you have to be somewhat flexible with these issues. And so we found this very nice solution with the open market, and it worked apparently quite well.
Yes, indeed, that was really good that it worked out this way, and we didn't lose the momentum. Yanis, there is a question to you. So Christina, our colleague, she's asking, she's very interested in understanding how CluBE is financed, and how do you ensure it as a long-term organization and institution?
Good question. Well, in fact, we are 100% funded by projects, which means that if we don't have any project, we don't have any people to work here. Unless, of course, Theodoros and my lovely colleagues would volunteer to keep on working for our cluster. No, in fact, we believe a lot in the work we do. So we think that this could be the way forward, the way to survive. And I'll give you an example. We started in 2014, 15, we got our first project, and that was half a person devoted to the project. And now in 2021, we have 15 people and so many projects that we keep on hiring. So we understand that not only what we think, but what is accepted and perceived by others is very positive. We would, of course, appreciate some permanent funding. We wouldn't dare to raise it during the previous decade when the economic crisis was really at its high in Greece. If things go better, we might be looking for ways to do that as well. But I would say that our own work should be our own security or guarantee for our future.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's really inspiring, and it's really great to see how CluBE's work is growing, actually. So thanks a lot for sharing this with us. And so we have a last question to this presentation, and then we will move on to the rest of the discussion. Theodoros, what are so far the main learnings in engaging stakeholders through the biowaste clubs?
Yeah, the main learnings. Actually, we had 3 biowaste clubs in Kozani. The first one was a bit an issue for us because we didn't know about what to do and how to manage all this. But now we are in a very good level of implementing biowaste clubs with the valuable help of Carina and yours, Dimitra. Actually, we have some, we think that the biowaste clubs helped us to see results. For example, the biowaste club that organized targeting the open markets, because we had not only informations to share with the traders, but also actions to do with them. So it was very important, this. And some other issues that we faced was the language. You know that the 2 first biowaste clubs that we ran was in English language, and it was a bit difficult for some people. And we knew that if we approach the traders with English language, it would be difficult as well. So we preferred the Greek language. Yeah, I think that now we have the experience for the next biowaste clubs and to engage the people. And we know that if you have a specific target of audience, and if you prepare the audience of what they are going to listen and what they are going to know after the biowaste club, they will be happy to participate.
So you're already informing them in advance, and you're already reaching out and
yeah,
to engage. Really, okay. Great, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. I don't see any more questions to Theodoros and Yanis. If you still have some, either shout out or just put them in the Q&A session. So
Maybe,
we have, yes.
Sorry,
please.
Dimitra, maybe just to add to what was said before, that in fact, I think that bio-waste clubs are a good way to align stakeholders. I mean, you have an ecosystem, as I mentioned before, and everybody, each of them has its own agenda. And then you have this central thing that you want to agree upon and then work upon it. And then bio-waste clubs is a means to align people first in the strategy and then during the course in the implementation. So for that, it's very useful. For the frequency, it's a different question. I think each local ecosystem has to see it on its own way. Sometimes you have to do it each month, some others every 6 months, but that really depends on the local exact situation. But its usefulness is beyond doubt.
Right, we're really happy that they're working so well, and there's still a lot of progress to be made, and we're really looking forward to the next years within Excalibur and VUB. So maybe we have now another question for Øystein and Maria to your presentation. So what happens with the material that cannot be recycled or reused?
Is it about the reuse week, or is it about in general?
I'm afraid there is no explanation in the question. Maybe the person asking it would like to give a short explanation.
I'm afraid the participants cannot unmute themselves, but if Stephanie can write a short explanation on the question in the chat, I think that would help already.
In both scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know about the reuse week, Maria?
No, I mean, in the reuse week, obviously we've been trying to only like gather materials that we can use somehow, and the organizers of the events have been responsible for their own events. So I guess if there's like leftovers from clothes and stuff like that, then they will give it to other secondhand store, for example, or someone else that can use it.
Well, if I can add to that, I'm not from Norway, but because we are implementing our own reuse, etc. system here, obviously there is a kind of screening, the very good ones, the poor quality ones, and then the leftovers. So for each of them, you have a different recipient or different target audience. And obviously the very last ones probably go for some kind of incineration or usual end use.
Thanks a lot for this. So there was another question to Laura, which she already answered in the chat, but we would like to open this question actually to all speakers today. So, do business generally perform better or worse than citizenship? And is there a significant gap? So Laura, if you would like to also briefly add something to your answer, and then maybe the other speakers could address the question as well.
Sure. So as my first response, as I already said in the chat, what was interesting is that in regards to the business, we could less easily identify a trend with the business, whereas for the citizens, as I showed you, we really had this tendency for each of the pilot communities. Here, it was really disparate. For example, for Barcelona, a third of the business said that they sorted all the time, but also a third said that they sorted very rarely. So it's very, it's a very disparate type of distribution. As I said, just so that I don't say anything wrong, But as I answered, so overall in Barcelona, business performed a bit less well. Also, Barcelonian citizens perform very well. So you also have to take that into consideration. For Valencia, it was a bit more or less the same. And then for Athens, the business performed a bit better. It also is dependent on the fact that, as I was saying, the type of collection scheme is different between pilots, but it's also different between the citizen and the business. Of course, business needs bigger bin. Some business don't have those bins, so it also influences that result.
Thank you very much. And maybe the other, maybe Øystein, Maria, Yannis, you would like to say something to this?
Yeah, when it comes to the different sorting types in Bergen, we have experience from if we add another bin with a different type of sorting type. It's like glass or something. A lot of the citizens answer that they sort a lot more, and we also see that amount of waste increase in the sorted types. So that's quite interesting. And at the businesses and shopping malls, we have also tested different type pilots with smaller fractions, and it's easier there when you're closer to the source. Then if you're at home, it's quite complicated to have like 20 different types of sorting bins.
Thank you. Yannis, and maybe a short answer from your side as well?
Yes, I would support what Øystein said. It's easier for enterprises, and I would say that they have a different approach. It's more business for them. As we said before, for the open market, they were very keen on doing it after the municipality thought that maybe we could reduce your fees. Mm-hmm. Which is very to the point for them. For the citizens, it might be an incentive, but I think there it's more a conceptual thing of environment related and doing good for the nature and for the next generations, etc., etc. So it's more, I would say it's a different approach. So our initial let's say output would be that business comes first.
Okay, so maybe we now need to place some more focus on the citizens as well.
Well, we could have, but due to pandemic, it was.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this
we will do as long as it's over. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, I would like to thank you all very much for the very interesting presentations and the very nice discussion and the nice questions. I will now give the floor back to James to wrap it up. Thanks again.
Thanks very much, Dimitra, and thanks to all of our speakers for their excellent contributions. It's extremely interesting, so thank you all. And thanks obviously also to all of our attendees for joining. It's much appreciated. So yeah, just left to me just for some closing messages. Once again, just to emphasize, let's stay in touch. We hope this webinar is a first contact rather than a last contact. So obviously you can contact directly to the speakers if you have some questions for them. Also welcome to contact me or other project partners. Make sure to follow the projects on social media and get all the updates that way. Special mention for the VUB network. So Bergen and the region of Western Macedonia are both within the VUB project, Lighthouse Cities and Regions, and we're creating here a network around Europe of cities and regions who want to exchange knowledge on these topics. So in the coming years, there's going to be much more intensive activities to exchange knowledge on these topics. So you can now sign up via the VUB website to have your city or region involved into this network. So check that one out. And the final thing to say is hopefully see you next week. So the next webinar in our series is coming up same time as this next week on Wednesday. So there we're diving really into some of the technologies that are being developed to valorize biowaste and wastewater coming from the project. So there's lots of interesting breakthrough technologies that we're going to be discussing next week. And you see there also further webinars coming up in the month of June. So check out the VUB website to register and hopefully see you then. That's it. So thanks everybody for joining. Thanks again to the speakers and see you soon. Bye.